Zomato has been served a notice by the National Commission for Scheduled Castes over the portrayal of a Dalit character in one of its ads that was taken down after a social media backlash. Ironically, it was an ad for raising awareness on a sensitive issue like environment on World Environment Day, but led to an insensitive portrayal in another sensitive issue regarding caste. The advertisement draws a link between the character Kachra from the film Lagaan with Kachra with the Hindi word for garbage, sparking outrage. After the backlash on social media, the company took down the video, saying that it had unintentionally hurt certain communities. Unintentionally, this is what Zomato had to say. We may have hurt the sentiments of certain communities and individuals. We have taken down the video. This is what the company said. Now, Vasudha Venugopal explains this entire fiasco.
One of the greatest creative minds of our time, David Ogilvy, had once said that a good ad is one that sells the product without drawing attention to itself. But what a recent Zomato ad did was exactly the opposite of that. Now, the food delivery platform has been served a notice by the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, NCSE, for its recent advertisement that was seen as derogatory and casteist. Now, this was a week after the food delivery service withdrew the ad after receiving backlash over its portrayal of Kachra. Now, Kachra here is not some household waste that they were talking about. They actually showed a person, incidentally the same actor, who played the role of Kachra in the award-winning movie Lagaan, and showed him doing a lot of tasks as an inanimate object like a table or a potted plant. Now, this ad that was actually meant to promote the message of recycling ended up upsetting a lot of people, particularly Bahujan groups, because they felt it was actually dehumanizing and humiliating Dalits. If you remember, Lagaan, one of India's official entries to the Oscars, had shown Kachra as a person of the marginalized caste, playing a pivotal role in the victory of the cricket team in the movie. Many Dalit experts who lashed out against Zomato ad also said that the way the character was portrayed in the movie was also problematic, but what Zomato did was demeaning Dalits because it normalized such behavior. Now, why is this issue so important? Zomato has already taken down the ad and it has been almost a week. Some say that advertising is not equipped to show all truth of a reality. But the controversy here has shown that advertising is often tone deaf and invisibilizes a social context, which is why brands and businesses need to address the issue of caste better. It has forced us to ask a few questions as to when movies and OTT shows have started showing at least some prominent characters from marginalized groups, and when tech giants in the US are also showing some inclination to understand caste, why is advertising not being more representative? Many ads in the past have also come under scrutiny for their insensitive portrayal of Dalit characters and Dalit issues. For instance, an electronics maker a few years ago was deeply criticized on showing a suicide and talking about merit right after Rohit Vemula's death. A professor of sociology at IIT Bombay, Suryakant Vagmore, feels that the advertising industry is not trained in the basics of Indian society, and advertisement of Zomato should actually serve as a case study on how not to be creative. Paul Divakar, another prominent Dalit activist, has also said that there is very little about Dalit culture or aspirations shown in Indian advertising, and there should be a conscious effort to be more inclusive. Now, probably the most important piece of advice has come from Sumit Maskar, who teaches at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy, who said that corporate India thinks caste diversity is in terms of inefficiency, and that it's important to get out of that mindset. And companies need to make a conscious effort to include people who belong to socially marginalized groups, and also facilitate an office environment where people are comfortable talking about everyday discrimination. So the Zomato ad saga is a wake-up call for corporate India, for brands and businesses address our social context better.
Let me quickly introduce our guests who are joining us on the show tonight. Dilip Cheran, founder and consulting partner, Perfect Relations. Dr. Suraj Yengde, author and columnist at the Indian Express and public intellectual and scholar at Harvard and Oxford. And Professor Badri Narayan, sociologist. Let me, before I go across to our guests, bring in Vijay Sampla, chairman of the National Commission for Scheduled Castes. Many thanks, Mr. Sampla, for speaking with NDTV. मेरा पहला सवाल आपसे ये है कि कमीशन ने बोला इस मैटर को इन्वेस्टिगेट किया जाएगा. किस तरह से इन्वेस्टिगेशन होती है इन मैटर्स की, क्योंकि यहाँ क्वेश्चन इंटेंशन का भी है. वो जो जोमैटो का कहना है कि उनका इंटेंशन नहीं था ये करने का, तो किस तरह से इन्वेस्टिगेशन करेंगे आप?
देखिए, अभी हमने मीडिया में कुछ खबरें छाया हुई हैं, उन्हीं को ही बेस लगा के हमने Zomato नोटिस लेते हुए इसके ऊपर किया है। और उसके बाद जब हमने देखा तो कुछ सोशल मीडिया के ऊपर उनका और ट्विटर वगैरह के ऊपर एक वीडियो जो चल रही थी और उसको हमने ध्यान से देखा, जिसमें एक करैक्टर को उन्होंने एक लगान फिल्म में था, जिसको एक कैटेगरी के साथ ही, हमारी एक अनुसूचित जाति के साथ ही जोड़ के देखा जा रहा है, और उसी को उन्होंने कचरे के रूप में उसको रिसाइकलिंग का लिए बनाया, और जो कि गलत तरीके से बताया गया। तरीके और बहुत थे अच्छे मैसेज देने के लिए, मगर ये तरीका जो है वो ठीक तरीका नहीं है और गैर मानवीय तरीका है और ऑब्जेक्शनेबल है, जिसके देखते हुए हमने नोटिस दिया है। हमने यूट्यूब को भी नोटिस दिया है कि क्योंकि उनके वहाँ पे चैनल पे ये चली है, और हमने जोमेटो को भी नोटिस दिया क्योंकि दिल्ली में ये अखबारों में छपा है, तो इसलिए हमने सीपी दिल्ली को भी नोटिस दिया और हमने उसका तुरंत प्रभाव से, तुरंत रिटर्न फैक्ट से ही उनसे जवाब मांगा है, ताकि ये जो जल्दी से जल्दी हमें ये बताएं और उसके ऊपर क्या फैक्ट हैं और उसके तथ्य जो है हमें जानकारी पूरी दें। और उनसे जवाब तलबी किया, और उनके जवाब तलबी आने के बाद ही हम उसके ऊपर आगे फर्दर क्या कार्रवाई करेंगे, उसके ऊपर उसके हिसाब से ही तय किया जाएगा।
ठीक है, लेकिन सांपला जी ये बताइए कि इस तरह के केसेस में एक्शन क्या लिया जाता है अक्सर?
देखिए, एक्शन तो, क्योंकि एक्शन तो लेना पहले उनका जवाब तलबी ही उसके ऊपर ही हुआ, और अगर उसके कहीं भी हमें वो साबित नहीं कर पाते तो उसके ऊपर वो जो SC एक्ट के तहत भी कार्रवाई हो सकती है, और बाकी धाराएं भी लगती हैं जो IPC की हैं, और उसके साथ साथ PO एक्ट की धारा भी लगती है। और मगर ये कौन सी धारा कब लगेगी ये तय उनके जवाब के बाद ही, उनकी जो है के बाद ही तय होगा, और उसमें जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन का ही हिस्सा रहेगा। इसीलिए हमने पुलिस कमिश्नर से ही इसकी जो रिपोर्ट तलब की है। और जहाँ तक है कि ये इस ऐड को जो हम समझते हैं कि बहुत सारे ऐसे हैं जो कि ये मानते हैं कि बदनाम हुए तो क्या हुआ, नाम तो हुआ, ये धारणा पे काम करने वाले बहुत सारी आजकल एजेंसी काम कर रही हैं। और क्योंकि पहले भी इन्होंने एक महाकाल मंदिर को एक इशू बना के ऐसे ऐड दिया था, सेम कंपनी ने ही, तब भी इन्होंने बाद में माफ़ी मांगकर काम छुटकाया, और आज फिर दोबारा ऐसा किया है। और इससे क्या है कि मानसिकता छलकती है कि ये बार बार कोई ना कोई ऐसा आपत्तिजनक ऐड ही क्यों तैयार करते हैं, और यही कंपनी क्यों करती है, और ये ऐड करके और कहीं ना कहीं इशू खड़ा करती है, और फिर वही कि बदनाम हुए तो क्या हुआ, नाम तो हुआ, लोगों के बीच में चर्चा आ गई और हमारी कंपनी मशहूर हो गई। अगर इनकी इच्छा शक्ति ऐसी हो तो बहुत सारे तरीके और थे रिसाइकलिंग के मैसेज देने के लिए, और कंपनियां भी देती हैं। बाकी अखबारों में भी गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी को प्रोत्साहित करने के लिए बहुत सारी कंपनियों के ऐड आती हैं, मगर उनमें कहीं आपत्ति नहीं होती है। वो अपनी कंपनी के ऐड के साथ साथ समाज की दृष्टि से, जो सरकार की जो है दृष्टि से, जो लोगों को संदेश देना होता है वो देते भी हैं। पानी बचाओ का है, पेपर बचाओ के लिए आते हैं, हर बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं, कचरे के रिसाइकलिंग के लिए जो ये है उसके लिए भी आते हैं, मगर उसमें एक करैक्टर खड़ा करके उसको बनाना वो गलत है।
लेकिन सांपला जी, इतना एफर्ट करा जा रहा है अवेयरनेस के लिए, ये भी लोगों को पता है कि इस तरह के पोर्ट्रेल गलत होते हैं, दंडनीय भी हो सकते हैं, तो फिर ये अमानवीय एक पोर्ट्रेल है वो कैसे हुआ, ये इनसेंसिटिविटी कैसे हो जाती है?
देखिए, इसमें ये तो कह सकते हैं कि लोगों में अवेयरनेस बहुत बढ़ती जा रही है, पहले से बहुत सारा फर्क पड़ा है, मगर कई लोग जानबूझकर करते हैं, जैसा इस केस में किया गया। मुझे यहाँ पे कोई अनजाने में हो गया हो ऐसा नहीं लगता है। यहाँ पर जानबूझ, जो मैंने कहा कि बहुत सारी कंपनियों की ये रहता है कि उल्टा सीधा कुछ भी बोलो उससे ज़्यादा चर्चा होती है, और ज़्यादा चर्चा होती है तो हमारी कंपनी की ज़्यादा ऐड होती है। बहुत सारी जगह पे ऐसा है कि कुछ भी उल्टा सीधा बोल देते हैं और बाद में सबको पता चलता है कि फलां व्यक्ति फलां से, उससे उनकी ऐड भी होती है, मशहूर हो जाते हैं। यानी जैसा मैंने पहले कहा कि बदनाम हुए तो क्या हुआ, नाम तो हुआ, उस दृष्टि से ये जानबूझ के किया गया। इतना नहीं है कि उनको ये पता नहीं कि रिसाइकलिंग के लिए मैसेज कैसा देता है। कोई छोटी मोटी कंपनी नहीं है, किसी गांव में या किसी गली में काम करने वाली कंपनी नहीं है, ये बहुत बड़ी कंपनी है, और उसको बहुत सारे एडवाइज़र होते हैं इनके पास जो ऐसी चीज़ों के लिए करने के लिए बोलते हैं, और ताकि उल्टा सीधा बोलो और एडवर्टाइजमेंट ज़्यादा होगी और बाद में माफ़ी मांग लेंगे। ये कोई उस मानसिकता के साथ नहीं है, ये इनकी कमर्शियल मानसिकता के कारण ऐसा हुआ लगता है, ये प्रतीत होता है।
ठीक है विजय सांपला जी, हमसे बात करने के लिए बहुत शुक्रिया। सो द कमीशन हैज आस्क्ड or rather issued a notice to various entities over here, specifically to Zomato, and basis their response will take further action. Let's move on now to our discussion. Dalit Lakhia, founder and consulting partner of Perfect Relations, here with us, Dr. Suraj Jengde, author and columnist, and Professor Badri Narayan. Dalit Lakhia, coming first to you, since this is pertaining to an ad, can this be justified on the grounds of creative freedom at all?
I think that Zomato has skirted on the edge of the unnecessary. I'm not saying unacceptable. It certainly may be unacceptable, but it is also unnecessary. As somebody who's sat several times on the Advertising Standard Council board, let me tell you that ads like this are always bound to create controversy. And companies over the last 10 years are more and more aware that thin-skinned consumers and thin-skinned critics are bound to attack it and therefore are being more and more cautious. But what mystifies me totally about Zomato's ad is that it runs a controversial ad just a day or two after it has run a fantastic ad on the placement of itself on a Spider-Man movie. What a waste. Even from a marketing point of view, as somebody who understands branding, and which is what I do most of the time, I can't understand a company trampling into people's sensitivities just when it's on a marketing high, being in a Spider-Man movie. So there is something wrong here, and someone needs to check who in Zomato was taking the decisions.
All right.
And what the agency trying to create attention.
Okay, sorry, Dalit Lakhia, we were losing your audio a bit there. We'll try and rectify that. Dr. Suraj, I want to come to you because you just heard the commission chairman there, and he seems to believe that this insensitive portrayal was not unintentional. Does it appear to be your opinion as well?
I have a four set of responses. I mean, you need to categorize it. The first is certainly what my colleagues Sumit and Suryakant and many others have commented, and even Anurag just came out of the piece. The idea of Zomato corporate diversity, that's the kind of first approach. The second is the role of NCSC, National Commission for Scheduled Caste, led by Honorable Mr. Vijay Sampla. The third is the category of the film, Lagaan, where it kind of emanates. And the fourth is the celebrities who are making crores in such advertisements and their responsibility. Allow me just a minute to just kind of break this down, if you will. First of all, we ought to understand that the people who are responsible, who sit on the boards and also who have probably hired some company to do this kind of PR stunt, we ought to make people responsible, not just the PR company, but also the entire Zomato ecosystem, who are sitting on the board, what's the corporate diversity. And that really brings us as to how dehumanizing aspects exist amongst those who tend to be flag bearers of progressivism and values. And that really falls flat in the face of such kind of demeaning advertisement brought forth to us. Now, if National Commission for Scheduled Caste, if it's taking suo motu cognizance based on the characterization of Kachra, which itself is an offensive, which is where people are having issues, the question remains, will NCST take action against the Lagaan, against, I was going to say, kind of boorish, longish film Lagaan, which was certainly an Oscar entry from India, because that's the origin of the controversy, right? So if NCSC is readily taking suo motu cognizance about this, the idea is it just taking into consideration just a company or the history and the echo chamber that supports it? That's why, I mean, we have a murder of a 24-year-old in my hometown, Nanded, Akshay Bhalerao, And National Commission for Scheduled Caste is nowhere there to take a cognizance when there is a brutal murder of a Dalit young man. And finally, the celebrities who are, who should be more sensitive and should outright call out and not even affiliate and associate with such kind of behaviors. How could they pass on? I mean, Mr. Samplait was mentioning about Mahakal and how Hrithik Roshan. And I wonder the kind of educational acumen these people have. If at all this fit into the stereotypes of buffoons who really don't have any kind of moral integrity, let alone an academic enterprise into understanding things. I mean, they certainly follow Western culture. They certainly stand for what black people, Black lives mean and all of that.
But many would say it falls in neither. It just falls in the category of being sensitive to a fellow human being. Professor Badri Narayan, one important point that Dr. Suraj raised there was of the portrayal of the same character in the movie Lagaan. Equally insensitive, as many people have pointed out. But because one didn't raise an objection back then, has it led to the present situation? So, should objection be raised at the first instance itself?
Yeah, I think Suraj is right. The objection should come there also, and here also. I think origin and the culmination both are. We need to take cognizance of both the moment of the expressions. But I would like to say, Maha, that this shows a social plurality of discourses which are coming through media and especially film media and the PR, advertisement, etc. And the issue of commercializing, and it's an argument which Vijay Samplaji was giving, that it's a commercial attempt. Okay, it may be commercial attempt, but commercial attempt. Why this kind of issues helps to sell the films? I think it's question on our society and our social habitats, on our social mind. So I think we should raise issue on ourselves also, that why we are going to see this kind of film. Second thing is, I would like to say, Maha, that there should be a sociologist or social person who understands the social concerns in the committee who screen these films, the censor boards. Who can see the discourses and the dialogues or the characters critically. So there should be a provision like that. Otherwise, this kind of thing will happen and it will remain happen.
Okay.
So my argument is it's a question on us. It's a comment on us. It's comment on the film and media discourses. It's comment on our committee who looks after these films and their discourses. A small word or even silence can humiliate anyone. So we need to understand those things very critically and very rigorously, I think.
Right. As you, in some sense rightly said, it's a comment on the entire society, not just on a single ad that's being mentioned here. Dilip Cherian, that also brings me to another very important point coming out from the points that both the other panelists have made. Is there a lack of diversity in the advertising space, in the media space? Because had there been a diverse set of people, at least somebody would have noticed the insensitivity because they would have felt sensitive about it.
I think there certainly is. This is a problem that many industries are today facing. Just like there is no diversity as far as gender is concerned in the boardrooms of India, so also this lack of diversity of inclusivity in terms of whether it is caste, whether it is in terms of gender, whether it is in terms of all other kinds of marginalized segments. This is something that is now coming to the fore because the product, the creative product is out there and anyone can raise an issue and it then balloons into the kind of issue which draws attention to itself. So if, as you said, Maha, that if you indeed had people of that kind to be inside the industry, then they would blow the whistle much earlier. Just as the whistle wasn't blown on Bollywood at a time when the movie was made, so also you will have more and more episodic issues which eventually will also end up crimping creativity. So if you want creativity to be unleashed, you've got to make sure that there is at the cutting table, as it were, enough people with enough diverse interests, backgrounds, and enthusiasms.
So, Dr. Suraj, this ad, you would clearly categorize this as a tone-deaf ad?
I will call it an outright casteist ad because it has not understood the sentiments, and it really relies on a historical abyss that it thought was a moment of jovial, while at the same time it was a moment of reckoning. It should have gone back and thought about this very moment, that there have been a backlash about this, and that's why I agree with my panelists. Though what we certainly need, Maha, in this case is an aggressive hiring of people belonging to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities who are into the advertising industry. They have been passing out from various institutions, having fashionable degrees. They've been there. The national institutes are out there, and yet the kind of absence of this, and especially we need to elevate people from such backgrounds to a level, at least on the board level, who will be tasked with the responsibility. Now in America, where I work and operate, at various company levels, there are people of vice president rank who are exclusively responsible for diversity and inclusion. What their job is to look at the equity and to bring that. We don't have that, and I'm pretty sure that applies to media, NDTV, and various other sectors. How can we really stop doing the repeated harassment that we continue to face and really meet out to a common justice where everybody is feeling protected, valued, and certainly celebrated?
Absolutely. We are running completely out of time. I can give just 20 seconds to Professor Badri Narayan to wrap this discussion up. And I want to ask you whether we are just addressing symptoms and not the cause. The cause is that there needs to be more inclusion at all levels in the society. And therefore, then these sort of symptoms that we see occurring in ads or movies will be eliminated.
Maha, you are very right. Actually, we need to address cause. We need to address the source of the wound, and that is the addressing the social wound. And here we need to address, bring more inclusivity in the film, in the sphere of the films, in the sphere of the PR, and also we need to make a social diversity committee kind of thing with the censor board, who can critically review even a small word, even Kachra name. Why one should give the name like Kachra? Is it a human discourse? Kachra is human discourse. Kachra is a very inhuman word in that way. No, Kachra, we all want to get free, get out from the Kachra. You are making it is a question of hasnik. You want to make it a satire on something, make it laughable. And so I think we need to address the social, the root of those social.
All right. I'll have to thank all three of you for joining us on this discussion. I'm sorry we've completely run out of time, but many thanks to all three of you for joining us on this discussion.